Hi guys, welcome now to Tech Tuesday, and you know what? I've got a feeling, a intuition, so to speak, of what many of the questions will be around on this particular Tech Tuesday, with the massive announcement that Nike are dropping all golf club and ball manufacturing, which came as a massive shock to most people. So what I'm going to do is go through your questions as always. Obviously there will be other questions apart from that, but I imagine it being pretty Nike dominated, this particular Q&A. Holy moly, so there's 108 comments here on Instagram alone. I may have to be picky, I apologise. So the very first question from Benicio Costales. I'm sorry if I've got that wrong, Benicio. If I've got your first name wrong, I know your name wrong. Have you ever had any Nike clubs in the bag? And what ball will you switch to now because the Nike is stopping making golf balls? Well, it's a good question. I have been using the Nike RZN Resin Platinum, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I've been using them for this year, and you know what? I really like them. I think they're a great ball. What am I going to use when they stop making them? I just don't know. That's a question I'm going to have to answer a little bit further down the line when I've had chance to have a lot of testing. I think the Pro V1 is always the go-to option in many respects, but the Callaways, the TaylorMades, they all make really good balls now. So I will have a look and I will see and I will decide a little bit later on down the line. As far as Nike clubs I've had in my bag, I used to have a set of Pro Combo irons when I was last year of training. So when would that have been? I would have been 22, 23 when I had a set of Pro Combos. And I also used to have the SQ driver, the square driver in my bag, which in some respects, I did hit some good shots with it, but it was a little bit of a funny one. I was going through a phase. Here's a massive question that so many people are asking. What equipment manufacturer do you think Rory and Tiger will go to as Nike isn't continuing? With Tiger and Rory, it's an interesting question, but in some respects, I don't think it matters, if I'm being honest with you. Both those players can use any of the top manufacturers and still play very, very good golf. There's no doubt about it. The question is, which company is going to come in and say, listen, we are going to make you our main player, and this is the offer on the table. The fact is that Rory 2013 signed a massive deal with Nike for clubs and for clothing. Now obviously the club and the ball contract that he has, that will be renegotiated and he will find a way to exit that contract. How soon that is, we just don't know. It depends on what all the lawyers get up to. Clothing, my feeling is he will continue to wear all the clothing because he looks good in it and it seems to be a good fit for him in not only the tailoring but also the whole approach to golf, so all the fitness stuff, being an athlete more than anything else. So the Nike clothing he will stick with. Club wise, you would say your gut feeling would be to say he'd go to Titleist. You know, that's where he originally was from, and going back there does seem to make a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of big players out there. TaylorMade, I know that is, in the marketplace as well and up for sale, but they have some good pulling power. So the Ping, Ping make great clubs. So the PXG, imagine PXG getting hold of him. There are so many club manufacturers out there that will fancy especially a bit of Rory. But gut feeling would say probably Titleist. As far as Tiger is concerned, Tiger's at a stage now where he's not been playing for a long time. Manufacturers are going to look at him and say, okay, we'll provide you with equipment, but maybe not the big contracts because there's so much unknown about his condition at this moment in time. Is he ever going to come back to the way he was? Is he going to ever come back at all? So I don't think manufacturers are going to be sniffing around Tiger quite so much. I imagine it's going to be a similar thing that Rory has with Nike, that Nike will carry on with Tiger. They'll carry on producing clothing and footwear for him because it's a good fit. And he's really synonymous with Nike Golf. I can't see that breakaway happening in my mind. So with Rory, I think Rory will get the bigger offers. I think that will be, for golf fans, a more interesting move. But for Tiger, I don't know. I think Tiger will pick and choose a lot more what he's going to be using. Question here from MagicJosh_19. Why do you personally believe Nike could stop making a golf equipment, and how will it affect certain golfers like Rory, we just spoke about, and Koepka, who have also signed with Nike? I think it's interesting with the other golfers. Bear in mind, Nike have a large tour staff. They've got Koepka, they've got Vegas, they've got Casey, had Schwartzel, obviously he's jumped ship to PXG, but they've got a big tour staff there. So it's going to be interesting to see where everyone goes and how it affects a lot of people, because if you think about it, it's very hard to imagine there not being Nike Tour staff playing the clubs and wearing the clothing. There are a lot of people, I'm sure you'll be able to think about some more off the top of your head right now. As far as why golf just hasn't worked from a manufacturing standpoint, club and ball standpoint for Nike, they just never managed to get a big market share. Now that's going to be difficult to understand, because bear in mind they've had Tiger using equipment since the year 2000, so it's best part of 20 years, just over 15 years, 16 years. And in that time, he was a world number one for the large majority of it. He won so many events, played some of the best golf ever seen. And if at that standpoint you cannot manage to capture the public's imagination with your golf clubs, then you're struggling. And they just didn't manage to do that. The reasons why that is, I think to begin with, and I think a lot of people agree with this, their golf clubs just weren't up to scratch. They had the perception within the public that they were a little bit gimmicky. I think that's a great shame, especially the last 2 years with the Vapor range. The clubs are great. They're really, really good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, and they perform better, if not equal to, other manufacturers. And like I said, I use the ball. I think the ball's a fantastic piece of kit. So the last 2 years, they've really started to capture my imagination as a golfer. But also beyond that, like maybe a few years beyond that with the Covert range, they produce some fantastic clubs. It's just a little bit too late. It's just a little bit too late. They had that bad start, didn't quite capture the public's imagination, and they've just not got market share since then. At the end of the day, if you're doing all this research, if you're making all these clubs and not a lot of people are buying them, you're not going to be making money. And for a massive company like Nike, if you're not making money, it's got to go. It's got to go. And that is why you're still going to see them making the clothing, because from an apparel standpoint, they're still making good cash. Question from Ben J. Logan 1. Do you think it will be better for Rory now Nike's ended, so he will be able to hit clubs he hits best? So do I think it would be better for Rory using other clubs? To be honest, not really. I pointed out the fact that the Nike clubs at this moment in time are just as good as their competitors. They're a good range of clubs. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. And you can see by the way that Rory is hitting the ball, he hits it amazingly well, and he's one of the longest on tour. He's one of the best from tee to green, there's absolutely no doubt. It's around the green and on the green where his issues have been. Now you can point to the putter that he's using and say, well, you know what, he's not confident with the putter, he doesn't like the putter, whatever it might be. His issues are more mental, it seems, on the greens. It's more of work around his stroke and work around his mental approach on the putting surface that he needs to work on. The fact is, these top players, if you give Spieth something other than his putter, he's still going to be able to make putts. It's more the fact that whatever's going on in Rory's head when he's on the green, that's having the biggest effect. As far as switching clubs, I imagine he's going to try and do it sooner rather than later. As soon as this announcement has been made, all the players are just going to want to know, what is my next move? What can I do? So many people are just going to say, listen, I'm going to stop the contract on my terms, because all players will have, I imagine, within their contracts a right to say, I'm going to stop the contract, and then shift on as quickly as possible. We could see a very fast avalanche of exits from Nike equipment. Could not as well. Players could continue using it for the rest of this season, but I imagine a lot are going to make changes very quickly. Will the exit of Nike be the start of a few companies' exits? Can companies such as PXG charge what they do in such a tight market? That's a question from SCJ87. Well, this is an interesting question, because if you are a company like Nike, you cannot get market share and you cannot make money, and you have to pull out. What is that saying about other brands within the marketplace? We already know that TaylorMade is up for sale. Ping, I think, will always be fine, because they are bringing out such quality clubs that the average golfer loves. So Ping aren't they are fussed about tour staff, they've got good tour staff, but they're more concerned about obviously the people who are buying the clubs. They're operated their whole cast iron construction and their driver policy generally around handicap golfers, and then added a few sprinkling of Stardust with the tour players, so they're going to be fine. If you have a look at people like PXG, they, in many respects, when they begin, they don't need to make lots of money. You know, they've got Bob Parsons backing them with billions and billions of dollars, and he's just a golf nut. Now, obviously, he's a very good businessman, so he's going to say at the end of the day, listen, I'd love this, I gave it a go, but it's not making any money, it's actually losing me cash. He will switch around and say, you know, I can't do this anymore. But the way they've started and the headlines that they've grabbed and the excitement that they've generated, as well as the clubs being of good quality, there's no reason why they can't, you know, fill that little bit of a gap. Bear in mind they're charging more but producing less, whereas Nike were charging the same and producing the same as everyone else but not selling as much. There's very different types of strategies going on there, so I think PXG will be fine. Back in the day, the major brands in equipment were Wilson, Spalding and McGregor. When did the shift to Callaway, TaylorMade, Titleist and the like happen? I think Callaway, TaylorMade and Titleist, you know, they've all been around for a long time. They just seem to have outlasted companies like Wilson, Spalding and McGregor. Or McGregor is a bit of a, well, they've completely gone. But obviously Wilson are still around and they're still producing clubs and decent clubs as well. They just don't have quite that same pulling power within the market, although they still have a brand name and obviously they still make lots of other sporting equipment. I think with equipment manufacturers, what you see from the outside, and this is the same with a lot of companies, what you see from the outside is this confident, this bold, this successful looking company that just keeps producing equipment, that just keeps saying this is the best, you need to buy this club. We think we produce the best clubs. Look at our tour players. Look how many people are using our drivers and all the rest of it. They exude this confidence, which I think doesn't give a full indication of what's going on behind the scenes. The fact is they're employing thousands of people. They need to get paid. They need to make money for their shareholders. And if something doesn't quite go right, if they have one bad year, pretty much like TaylorMade have done, by the way, if they have one bad year, then they're owning company such as Adidas will say, listen, I think we need to maybe cut our losses, and then all of a sudden it's thrown into a little bit of turmoil. Don't think because a company has been around for a long time, and again this is not just golf, that it's going to be there forever. Look at what happened to some of the banks. You know, these long standing institutions just didn't manage themselves properly, did very underhand things, and they're gone. Right guys, there are so many more questions, but I think what I'll do is I will end this video here, call this the Tech Tuesday Nike special, whatever it might be, and then just do a bit of a longer episode of Finch Friday on Friday just to answer some more of those questions. I have an inkling I might not actually be able to get up to the range this week. I've got a few things going on. I'm going away for a bit of a weekend breakaway as well, so I think it might be more of this Q&A style, but I'll just try and get as many answers done on Friday for you because there are just so many there. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Please comment in the box below. Let me know what you think about this Nike news as well. Follow me on my other social media platforms as well, which are all linked in the description below. And we will see you soon. And I've been using my light, which seems to have worked a little bit better today. Maybe it needs to be a touch closer. About there.